So now, preferred time for Al Netilas Yadayim. Whenever we make a bracha on a mitzvah, it is preferable to recite before the action is performed. So it's always before. I mean, if you decided to eat apple, so don't say blessing and go wash your apple, right? Or you wanted to eat banana, so first peel your banana, then say blessing, and then start eating, right? You have to the pause between the break. I mean, the pause. The break between the blessing and the actual performance is mitzvah must be as short as possible. Okay, so that's the topic. Whenever we make a bracha on a mitzvah, it is preferable to recite the bracha, recite it before the action is performed. Okay. However, the general custom is that bracha al Netilas Yadayim, after one washes the hands, after one washes the hands rather than before. Okay. So I mean, it takes time. So even, for example, there are like several people around the table, the whole family, and they have guests. So let's say 10 people. 10 people until everybody will wash their hands around. It could be 15 minutes easily, right? Okay, maybe I could exaggerate. Okay, maybe 10 minutes. Okay, still. This is because many times our hands are unclean and we are not fit to recite bracha in such a state. We therefore always make a bracha after our hands are clean, but before we dry them, even if we are not aware of any dirt on their hands. Okay, so that's he brings a little different point, which is very, very important. So we usually make the blessing before we perform action, but here, in a case of Al Netilas Yadayim, it's opposite, right? So first we wash hands. So first we do action, and then we say the blessing, right? But the washing actually comprise of two things. First, wash with water, and second part is drying the hands. So she would wash her hands, right? Make them pure, and only after that say the blessing before drying the hands. So many people even I don't know, like you expect them to know, but they do not. I mean, they do not do as they know. So meaning they dry their hands and say blessing at the same time. That's not what we do, right? You wash your hands. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, quick. So say you're having a dinner during the week or something.
Yeah.
In the middle of the week, and you have a guest over, Gentiles or Noahides or whatever, are they required, or is that a big no for them to do that?
No, they're not required, and they're not required. If they want to wash the hands, there is no prohibition against them washing their hands, but they're not allowed to say the blessing. You understand? Because in a blessing that they say that thank you, Hashem, who sanctified us with your mitzvahs and who commanded us to do this mitzvah. It's totally lie. Nobody can, like, total lie. Nobody command them to do this mitzvah. You understand? So if they want to wash their hands, so not to feel bad, not to feel embarrassed, there is no problem. They can go wash their hands the same way, as I would, but they do not say the blessing. There is no problem. And sometimes even Jews, they say that the blessing is so low, so you cannot hear. So it's there's no problem whatsoever. You understand? Okay. Any other questions before we continue? Okay, so it's actually very, very interesting, very, very interesting point. I almost skipped my mind. So we always say first we say blessing and then action, but here is the opposite. Not opposite. Here we start with the action, then we say the blessing, and then we finish with the action. So what is the action? Then we finish, we dry our hands. Right? That's very interesting. So in this case, that's what he's exactly saying. In a way that this is also considered to be reciting of the bracha before the mitzvah, since drying of the hands is a part of the obligation. So right, because one of the obligations. No problem. Continue. As explained, the bracha al Netilas Yadayim, although recited after the actual washing, applies to the mitzvah of washing the hands. Many individuals are under the misconception that the talking is allowed after they have washed, as long as they have not yet recited the bracha. This is incorrect. I'm not sure why would somebody think so. After the hands have been washed, any talking is prohibited, because no interruption is permitted between the mitzvah and the bracha. Some poskim write that this silence should begin even after the pouring of the water of the hands just once. If one does speak after the washing one's hands before bracha is recited, she must wash their hands again before saying the bracha. So let's, I'm not sure why somebody would make this conclusion, but looks like it's a very famous misconception if he mentioned this. Very interesting. So let's read it again, and we're going to explain line by line. As explained, the bracha al Netilas Yadayim, although recited after the actual washing, applies to the mitzvah of washing of the hands. So even we say the blessing after we finish washing, so this is the blessing for the washing. So we say that the second part is drying. Many individuals are under the misconception that talking is allowed after they washed. I'm not sure why would they think, because we still did not say the blessing. So basically, she's washing her hands and she's talking to somebody. That's okay. As long as they have not recited the bracha. So if I'm just trying to understand what is the rationale. I mean, maybe if we can compare before eating the apple, before saying the blessing on apple, so we can talk, right? But then after we say the blessing on the apple, so after the blessing until we start eating, a person cannot talk. So maybe that's what this misconception came from. So she washes her hands, and before saying blessing, she starts talking, right? So it's absolutely forbidden. Right? Why? Because he said there is no interruption permitted between the mitzvah and the bracha. So mitzvah is starting with the first pouring of the water, right? So that's where mitzvah starts. Not with the drying. Drying is a part of the procedure. So, but it's not the complete mitzvah. Some poskim write that the silence should begin with the pouring of the water on the hand just once. That's what that's perfectly logical. If one does speak after washing one's hands before the bracha is recited, she must wash her hands again before saying the bracha. So she must wash her hands because it was in interruption. When we have interruption, even when let's say before eating apple, right? So you say the blessing on an apple, and somebody calls you. You say 1 second, and you want to start eating the apple. Of course, you have to say the blessing again because it was interrupted. So same issues here. This is different. This is different than talking after completing the mitzvah of Netilas Yadayim. In Netilas Yadayim entirely, but before making muktzeh. In that scenario, it is merely preferable not to talk, including not to say no, sh, and so on. However, one who does speak does not wash her hands. Again, she merely stops talking immediately. Mishnah Brura. Okay. So it's actually very. However, one who does speak does not wash her hands again. She stopped. Okay. So I mean, it's okay. So let me explain what it says here. So we wash our hands in order to eat bread. So in some sense, right, these two mitzvahs are connected, right? So otherwise, if you're not if you don't want to eat bread, so you don't wash your hands, or you can wash your hands, but of course you don't say the blessing on the washing of the hands. Okay, if you want to just wash your hands with a vessel, there is no problem. Right? So these two mitzvahs are connected, and even though they're connected, they're still separate. So so in this case, so after some, let's say she washed her hands, she dried her hands, and now before eating the bread, it's preferable, as we say, do not say any word, right? Even like make some sound, something like that. So it's better to keep quiet. Completely quiet, right? But it says even though somebody spoke, like between washing of the hands and eating of the bread, so no washing is required. Okay. So basically, why no washing is required? Usually the washing is required when somebody divert their attention to the hands. In this case, most likely not. But some people go a little stringently, and that's what we actually do. And we actually require a person who spoke to go wash their hands, of course, without blessing. Of course, blessing is never said second time. But of course, we can rely on this opinion that no re-washing of the hands is required.